Hello everybody, this is Solar Tiger with another crypto mining video, and today is at the end of May 2023, and I'm going to show you an update on my crypto mining system. So a couple of months ago I started mining cryptocurrency, and I did a few videos on what I had, and since then I've learned a few things and I've bought some different equipment, and I'm going to make a video about what I'm doing now. So I started off mining a currency called Duino coin on the Raspberry Pi. I have one right here on the Raspberry Pi single board computer. It says a 3B plus, and I was mining Duino coin on it. Just more of a have a go, have some fun type of thing, and that worked quite well. And then I tried a few other things. So after that I tried to mine a coin called Monero. I read about it online, and it's a coin that you mine with a CPU. And I first tried it with the Raspberry Pi, since I had one, and it turned out that the Raspberry Pi is not good for mining Monero because of its ARM CPU. And to mine Monero you use some mining software called XMRig, and you can see it running over here on a different computer. So this is XMRig, and to mine from Monero, XMRig needs a few things. You need 2 megabytes of level 3 cache in your processor for every core that you want to mine with, and unfortunately the ARM CPU in the Raspberry Pi has no level 3 cache. That means that the miner runs very slowly. You get about 10 hashes per second mining Monero using the RandomX algorithm. It's very slow, so I decided to buy some different equipment. So after trying to mine Monero on the Raspberry Pi, I replaced it with this. I bought 2 of these mini PCs off of eBay for about 20 or 30 pounds each. Bought 2 of them. Now these have an Intel Atom CPU, it's a budget CPU, and the issue with that is that this doesn't have much. I don't think it has any level 3 cache at all. It's a very cheap PC. I didn't do too much research before buying it, and although it does a bit better, on this you'll get about 140 hashes per second, which is not great, and that's how that goes. So also if I bring back the Raspberry Pi, you can mine over Wi-Fi with this with no problems, or via Ethernet. I had this running in my shed, so I was using the Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi works fine on that. So that's that. Now On the mini PC, I run Linux on all my PCs, basically because I don't have any licensed copies of Windows, and I didn't want to pay for a license for Windows, since I have a couple of computers. It'd be very expensive, so I run Linux, which is free, but also, since I've been using Windows all of my life on computers, I had to get used to Linux. It is mostly graphical, but there's a lot of typing things into the terminal, and I'm not used to that, so I have to go on the internet, and I do a lot of copy and pasting. So that's how that goes. So yeah, you get about 140 hash per second on this, which if I connect with using Ethernet cable is fine. Trying to get the Wi-Fi to work on this on Linux is very troublesome. So mainly I just use it over Wi-Fi. I have trouble getting the Wi-Fi adapter to work, so I just normally plug in an Ethernet cable and it works okay. So if you want to mine Monero, I wouldn't recommend buying one of these. They are cheap, and they're cheap for a reason, so not good for mining cryptocurrency. Okay, if you want a basic computer to browse the internet, type a few letters or documents, it should be fine. But for cryptocurrency mining, no good. That's all I can say about these. And if you read reviews about these on the internet or watch YouTube reviews, they don't rate very good. So that's that. After that, I tried briefly to mine Bitcoin using some USB miners, and that wasn't very good. The USB miners were very expensive, and you earned about a penny a day. So I quickly gave up on that and went back to Monero mining. So what I have now is I have a couple of pieces. So I've got these two here. I have a Raspberry Pi in my shed, and at the back here is a Dell 3020. That has an i5 4590T CPU in it. It has, I believe, 6 megabytes of cache, so I can run 3 threads on it. And at the moment I'm getting 1.28 kilohashes per second out of it. So this PC is okay, but I would like to replace it with something else. I'll come back to that later. I have these two PCs as well. The one on the bottom is a converted Chromebox 3. So originally it ran Chrome OS. It's a Google thing. This one has a reasonably good specification. As you can see, the sticker on the front says it has a Core i7 8th gen processor. It actually has an i7 8550U, and this CPU has 8 megabytes of level 3 cache, meaning I can run 4 threads on it using XMRig. So, and with that I can get approximately 2 kilohashes per second on it. So that's my best PC that I have. Above it is an Intel NUC. This one has an i5 5220U CPU in it. This one only has 3 megs of cache, so I can run, I can run 1 core of this, which I think is 2 threads, and I get 700 to 800 hashes per second with this. So that's what I have. So things to consider when buying a PC for crypto mining is that if you're mining Monero, it's a CPU coin. You mine using software called XMRig, and the requirements for this is that you need 2 megabytes of level 3 cache for every core that you want to mine with. So what this means is that quite often you might be limited by the amount of cache that your processor has. For example, if I show you the Dell 3020, it's a 4-core processor, but it only has 6 megabytes of cache. So I can only use 3 of the 4 cores to mine for Monero. So that's something to bear in mind. Also, another thing to bear in mind when you're crypto mining is about the power consumption of the devices that you use. Now, this Dell has a processor that's rated at 35 watts, has a 35 watt processor, so that's that one. The processors in the Intel NUC and the Chromebox have a power rating of only 15 watts, so less than half that of the Dell. So that means that you will be using less electricity. Not only will you be using less electricity, you'll also produce a bit less heat as well. So the electrical consumption is something to consider if you have to pay for the electric, as in the case of the Dell's plugged into the mains, so that's that. But also, if you're running your mining equipment on alternative sources of energy, you need to supply it from somewhere. And in this case, the NUC and the Chromebox are running on solar power. So I have a solar power system outside. You can see there are 3 100 watt solar panels that are charging some batteries. There are 3 12-volt batteries inside this box, and inside this cupboard is a load of electrical gubbins. But basically, the solar panels charge the batteries, and the batteries power the miners and other stuff that's in here, but never mind about that. So that's that. So these two run on free electricity. So other than the cost of the miners, everything else that I mine is profit. Whereas on the Dell, what I mine has to be offset by the cost of electricity. So in this case with the Dell, I'm probably spending more on mains electricity than what I'm earning. So I'll put that down to just education or having fun or as a hobby. After all, with this crypto mining system, I'm not here to make an outright profit. It's more of a hobby and a learning thing, and just to have a go at crypto mining. So that's what we have. So also, when buying equipment, the Dell plugs into the mains. I have a AC adapter that I'm using with it, so that's fine. And when you buy your equipment, things you might have to consider is I bought these two items. They did not come with a power adapter. That's something to consider. The Chromebox runs on 19 volts, and I'm running that on my solar system with an in-car laptop power supply. It converts the 12 volts from the batteries up to 19 volts to run the miner. That works well. Also, another thing about the power consumption is on the bottom of this unit there's a label that says that you should use a 65 watt power supply with it. I.e. that's what would have come with it. So that's 65 watts sounds a lot, and if I was running it on solar that would probably be out of the question. But what I found is that whilst mining from Monero, it actually only consumes about 30 watts of it, well 25 to 30 watts of power. So that's better. So it just goes to show that the equipment, when you're mining for Monero, will probably use a lot less power than what it says on the sticker. So that's just something to bear in mind. It goes in your favour, of course, but that's that. So the Chromebox runs on 19 volts. You'll need something to convert either the mains to the 19 volts. So hopefully yours would come with a power supply. Mine didn't, but I knew that when I bought it. Or you have some way of powering it from another source. Then we come to the Intel NUC. Now the great thing about the Intel NUC, from the point of view of running it on solar, is that there is a label on the bottom of this saying that you need a 19 volt power supply, but if you go on Intel's website, you will find that a lot of these Intel NUCs would accept any voltage between 12 and 19 volts. So it will work happily on 12 volts, which is great because it means I can wire it straight to my solar power system without any adapters or converters or other DC to DC power supplies. I can simply wire it straight to my 12 volt batteries. And further to that, I have found out that these things will work down to even less than 12 volts. I've had these running down to 11.6 volts and it worked just fine. So that's a good thing. So most of these mini computers run on 19 volts. It's quite common. So if you want to run it from a 12 volt supply, you'll need some sort of DC to DC converter, like an in-car laptop adapter or something like that to run it. So, but if you're buying these and you're going to run them from the mains, then make sure you get a power supply with it. Otherwise, you won't be able to run it. So that's that part of it. Also, now I have several of these devices. There's 3 here and I've got a Pi in the shed. And you'll be wanting to monitor your devices and to see how they're working. And you don't want to have a monitor and a keyboard attached to each of these devices because you'll need several of them, take up space, and they cost money. So the way to get around that is to run some software called VNC. In other words, to remotely access your mining computers from another PC. And I use Real VNC, you install a copy of the server version on each of the devices, and then on the device you want to monitor them from, I'll come to my iPad as a demonstration. So we have VNC, but on the thing you want to view it from, you need to install the viewer. So the viewer on your main PC, the server on each of the ones that you want to view. Now, real VNC have a home version that let you monitor up to 5 computers. So, and that's free. If you want to monitor more than 5 computers, you'll have to pay for a commercial version. Now, you can see here that you can view your different computers. Ignore the Ryzen, that's my main computer downstairs. So, my miners are Chromebox 3, the Dell Monero, the Intel NUC, and the Solar Miner is the Pi in the Shed. And with this you can view the desktop of each computer, and you can interact with it as if you was there. So I can view things on my iPad, on my phone, and on my main PC in the living room. So as an example, I will show you the Chromebox. I come over here. This is the Chromebox, and I have a monitor hooked up to it, and that's the desktop. So that's me sitting in front of it, and I have a keyboard with built-in mouse, and you can see that I'm moving the trackpad and moving the pointer. So that's if I was sitting at it. If I was sitting at my main computer or on my iPad, I can just click on this, and I can now view the desktop on my iPad, and I can interact with it through the screen here. So I can monitor the computer without being sat in front of it. So this is the same as that over there. If I go back here, I will now go to my Pi in the Shed. Right, so this is the Pi in the Shed. It's obviously not here. This Pi is in, it's in that building out there. So, and I can monitor it from inside the house. So you can see here that we are doing a whopping 5 hashes per second. Now, another thing I'll say here is that, as I said, mining on the Raspberry Pi is not very good for mining Monero. Monero uses a mining algorithm called RandomX, and it's not very good. So I mine to a pool called Monero Ocean, and they produced a version of XM Rig that works slightly differently. What it does is it can mine other currencies, and which may work better on your hardware, and then it pays you in the equivalent value of Monero. So you can see here that we're mining using an algorithm called Ghost Rider, and so it's mining on using that, and then it pays me an equivalent in Monero. It gives me an equivalent Monero hash rate, which here is 28.17 hashes per second, which is better than the 10 hashes per second it could manage actually mining Monero. So that is the algo switching version of XMRig that's been produced by Monero Ocean. But that version only works if you're mining to Monero Ocean, which brings me to the fact that you can mine Monero in one of two ways. You can either solo mine it or pool mine it. Now, if you want to solo mine Monero, you'll need a powerful PC with a high hash rate. And PCs with a high hash rate have two issues. One, they cost a lot of money, and two, they consume a lot of electricity. So making a profit that way is much more difficult. So most people will pool mine. In other words, a load of people will combine their hash rate through a pool to mine for Monero, and if a whole load of people get together and combine their hash rate, you'll have a better chance of finding Monero blocks. And then if you find a block, the proceeds are split between all the miners. So most people will pool mine because we can't afford really powerful equipment, either from the cost or the amount that electricity costs, especially with the high prices at the moment. So I mine on very cheap equipment. The Raspberry Pi was, I don't know, 30 or 40 pounds when I bought mine. These Ace PCs were about 20 or 30 quid, although I don't recommend those. The Chromebox was about 80 something pounds. If you want to buy a Chromebox, there are all different versions available with different processors, but the one I would recommend is the i7 with the 8550U CPU. That's the one that has the most cache, 8 megabytes of cache. It's the best for mining Monero. So 80 odd pounds for that. I wouldn't pay much more, though some of them are priced at stupid prices. I buy my equipment on eBay. It just pays to watch all the listings every day and then buy when the price is right. This is an Intel NUC. I bought this one for £20, but it didn't come with any RAM or any storage or a CPU blower, as I found out. So it wasn't as cheap as I thought. So I don't know how much got in this. Maybe £30–40 maybe in this. So the Dell was, I think, was about 50 quid. And can't remember if it came with a hard drive or not. Also, if you buy some PCs, they don't have a HDMI output. The Dell has VGA output and DisplayPort output, which brings me back to I bought this monitor, and it's a 7-inch monitor. Here's the box for it. I bought it originally for the Raspberry Pi, but it comes in useful as well. This 7-inch display has a VGA input, HDMI and composite input. I only have HDMI cables, so for the Dell I had to buy an adapter. I got a VGA to HDMI adapter. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it works. The Intel NUC has a HDMI connector, but it's a mini one for some reason. So I had to buy an adapter to convert it to regular HDMI. And the Chromebox has a regular HDMI port on it. Some PCs only have DVI, some only have display ports, so that's something else to bear in mind. Also, another thing to bear in mind, if you want to use real VNC to monitor your computers remotely, then you will need to plug something into the HDMI port to fool the computer into thinking you have a monitor connected to it. Otherwise it won't produce a picture that you can view over real VNC. So to do that, you buy a dongle. So this is a HDMI dongle, dummy adapter or whatever they're called. And you simply plug that into the HDMI port, and it fools the computer into thinking there's a monitor attached to it, and it will produce a picture that you can view on VNC. If you don't plug anything in a lot of cases the computer won't produce a picture and you won't have anything to view on your remote computer, on your main computer. So these things are fairly cheap, buy them for a few pound off of eBay. With the Dell, the VGA converter thing does the same job, so that's that. What else can I say? I use a wireless keyboard, and it comes with a little dongle thing you plug into the computer. I bought one here. I would recommend that you bought a keyboard with a mouse built into it. It makes it easier for doing things on the computer, and it means that you don't have to have a separate mouse here. Most of the time I don't need the keyboard, so it's just here if I need to change a setting on it on here. The only thing I'll say about these is that you may have trouble trying to get into the BIOS or setup program of your device using a wireless keyboard. So if you need to go into the BIOS and change anything in the setup program, I would recommend you had a wired USB keyboard to hand, because if you need to get into the setup, then as soon as you turn the device on, you'll need to press a key on the keyboard to enter the setup program. Something like F2, delete, or whatever it tells you on the boot up screen. So you'll need to do that if you have to install an operating system on your device, because there are quite a few of these devices that when you buy them, these are all second hand, the previous owner will probably have wiped the hard drive in it, or in a lot of cases removed the storage device as a matter of security or privacy, and you have to put in a new storage device. So to install your new operating system, you will probably need to make a bootable USB stick to install your operating system on. And to do that, you'll need to get the computer to boot from a different device. So that's why you need to get into the setup program. So that's that. I run Linux on all my devices, as I don't have to pay for a copy of Windows or a license. So I use Linux on my devices. It's free, you can download it from the internet, and that's great. But if you buy your device and it has Windows already installed on it, then all well and good. As long as when you buy it, you either know the password to log into it, or it's a brand new install. But that's that. So that's what I have. Normally I don't have a monitor connected to my computers. It's just to show you how it works. I run all my devices headless, because that's how it works. Especially if you have them located in different places. It means you don't have to buy several monitors, keyboards, mice, and etc. And you can view all your machines on your primary computer, or tablet, or phone, or whatever. So that's how that is. So, one thing I did notice. Now, the Chromebox, the Raspberry Pi, and the Dell will all display a picture on this monitor. The Intel NUC will not. If I connect a HDMI lead from this to this monitor, I get a blank screen. I think it's because the monitor only has a resolution of 1024 by 600, and the video output of this is out of range for it. I spent a couple of days trying to get this to output a picture to that, and I thought my NUC was faulty because I couldn't get a picture on it. And then I had a brainwave. I took this and I plugged it into my monitor on my main PC, and it displayed a picture without any problem. So if you can't get your NUC to display a picture on one of these 7-inch screens, your NUC's not faulty, it's because the video output is out of spec for the display. So this is Solar Tiger with a video about my crypto mining setup. I come back to my iPad. So this is the dashboard for Monero Ocean, and you can see here that I'm averaging around 4 kilohashes a day, which will earn me about 9 or 10 pence a day. So these are my machines. You can see 3 of them run on solar: the Chromebox, the NUC, and the Shed Miner. And you can see what hash rate I'm getting. The Dell runs on the grid, so I'm looking to replace that with something more efficient. So, and this is how much XMR I have got. So if you add those two numbers together, it's about, well, you can add them up and you'll see. Now, you mine to a pool, and if you want to withdraw your balance, there is usually a minimum threshold to withdrawing your Monero to a wallet. You will need to set up a wallet as well, but you can find that out online. Now, at the minimum threshold, when you withdraw your earnings from the pool, there is a transaction fee, and the transaction fee varies according to how much Moneros you have. If you try to withdraw at the minimum threshold, you'll have to pay the highest fees. So the best thing to do is to just mine for as long as possible before making a withdrawal, and that way you will retain more of the currency that you have mined. So that's something to bear in mind. So this is Solar Tiger. thanking you for watching, and if you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. I do only reply to sensible comments. That's just how I work. If you leave sarcastic type comments, they will simply be ignored. I'm not the only channel that does that. And I will see you in another video. So this is Solar Tiger saying thank you for watching, and until next time, goodbye and happy crypto mining. Thank you.